This is the Raspberry Pi 400. This is a fully fledged computer that's composed entirely on a single circuit board that is embedded within this keyboard. Looks like a keyboard, but it's actually a fully fledged working PC that runs a Linux distribution. As it's specifically designed for the Raspberry Pi, which is why the Raspberry Pi logo is there, and the Raspberry Pi logo is on the back. It's a small keyboard, so it uses the function key for the second functions above that are seen in the red. It's a fully fledged keyboard. It doesn't work the best for typing stuff on a computer, but it actually works surprisingly well for playing games. And this comes complete in a kit that comes with this mouse, this Raspberry Pi mouse. It's just a standard PC mouse, a standard PC USB mouse. This works on any Windows PC, and it's just all the same stuff that a regular Windows PC. You can even use a regular Windows PC mouse on this. On the back here, we have a lot of ports here. This, I think that's for connecting to some sort of monitor. This is the TV cable, the HDMI. It actually uses its own special Raspberry Pi HDMI cable. And it should really be best used plugged into that specific output there. This is a power plug, uses a USB Type-C connector for the plug, which looks like this, comes with its own power supply, Raspberry Pi power supply. And it even has an Ethernet port on the back right there too, so you could connect it for using Ethernet. Memory sticks are something you're going to be needing a lot if you want to use this thing. This thing doesn't have a hard drive at all on the inside, and it has very little memory space. But thankfully, it gives you free USB ports right here, so it's easy to use this thing. We put memory sticks in here. I have a lot of memory on here. Memory sticks pretty much are this thing's hard drive. And the entire operating systems it runs on run entirely on micro SD cards. Right here, this is its operating system. It's a Linux distribution. It actually came with this right inside of the port right there. It runs a Linux distribution called the Raspberry Pi OS, which is a Linux distribution that's specifically designed for use on the Raspberry Pi 400. And these operating systems are interchangeable. I have another one that has the RetroArch operating system on there, which is used for emulating hundreds of classic games. That's right, this thing could play hundreds of classic games, and it could browse the web and do all sorts of stuff. Let's see this thing in action now. The Raspberry Pi 400 also comes with this official book, this official guide on how to use a computer. It's more than just how to use a computer. It also talks about programming. So this does have a strong emphasis on web development and software development. You can use the Raspberry Pi to develop. All that's listed in pounds because these computers are primarily made in the UK. It's a British build period. Look, this is an instruction book. This is a downright book. This is something you could buy at a bookstore for a pretty hefty price. It's filled with, it's rich with details, full color pages. It's rich with details about everything you could do with the Raspberry Pi and everything that this little small circuit board's capable of. There's programming concepts in it for Python and Java. It's really easy to teach yourself Python or Java if you use these. I plan on making a few games myself using the Raspberry Pi eventually. So here's the Raspberry Pi 400. It's all set up to my TV I have in my bedroom, which pretty much is a computer monitor, where it comes with this default desktop wallpaper, and the taskbar is by default located on the top of the screen right here. This is where my memory stick is. We're not going to see that. So we can go on the internet here. This thing has a full web browser here. See, I have Discord up and running, and I can even do some typing here. Watch this. This is a test of Discord being used. It's hard to type things. You have to really press down on these keys for it to register, which is actually really bad for doing serious typing. Actually, I don't recommend using this for serious typing. You could connect an external keyboard to this too, if you want, but being used on the RPI, yes. The test of Discord being used on the RPI. This is being shown in my YouTube video. This is being shown in my YouTube video. Yeah, this isn't really a great thing to type with, but it's like a fully fledged web browser. It's pretty impressive, actually. A really small computer size of a circuit board could do all this stuff. This is really impressive. Here's my YouTube channel. Look, it's my most recent YouTube video. Right here. YouTube never seems to have ads when I watch on the Raspberry Pi 400. Ad for YouTube. This is using the Chromium browser, the Chromium web browser. It's pretty much Google Chrome, but it's for Raspberry Pi or for Linux distributions in general. So you're watching my most recent video before this one, where I was playing my Ape Escape 3 Let's Play. So that way you won't have to go walk all the way back to one end of the level. If you want to get something. This makes it easy for being transported throughout the level and traveling from one end of the level to another. Because the rest of the remaining monkeys only saw where they'll last. As I said before, this Raspberry Pi is a strong emphasis on programming. See, there's BlueJ Java, there's Java IDEs and Python IDEs. There's Scratches on here used for making your own games, making your own software. There's education stuff, and they also use these for educational purposes too, because how cheap they are. There's comes up the whole LibreOffice suite is on here. Here's LibreOffice Writer. It's just like Microsoft Word, but it's on the Raspberry Pi. It has no spell check at all. It says it does, but it actually doesn't. It doesn't think any word you type in is wrong. Again, it often misses keys a lot of times, so yeah, this isn't really the best thing to use for typing. I mean, it's okay for typing out small letters, maybe, or small notes, or if your real main computer. So if you have one of these, I hope you have like an actual Windows PC lying around and use your main computer. If that ever broke down, you'd use something like this. I actually did use this once my Windows PC was malfunctioning once. So I actually use a decent enough alternative. It actually could do a lot of the same things that the Windows PC do. Use it to download files from the internet, and you could use it to and then you could load them onto memory sticks. So now too, this thing also comes with some games as well too. There's graphics, sound, and video games. Like comes with some games. They're mostly all games that are programmed using Python and Java and all that. Here's Boing. This is a game that's a blatant ripoff of Pong. You just use a keyboard to move up and down. And then you could, and again, it's just like, plays just like Pong, but it's very elaborate. It has a lot of has a lot of sound. It has a lot of sound effects, and it has music that constantly roars in the background as you play through. It's really just like regular Pong. It's really hard to win at this game. It's almost impossible to win. You have to have really fast instincts, fast accurate instincts, and the ball's speed changes sometimes too. Yeah, it's just what you expect for a Pong clone. At least it's true to the original Pong. Also comes this game called Bunner. It's supposed to be like Frogger, but it's with a bunny rather than a frog, where you could just use it uses a keyboard only. Uses a keyboard only. You only get one life, and if you lose once, that's it. It's game over. And it's very random too. It's completely random, and it's infinite as well too. You never know what's going to come up next. It's actually not bad of a game considering the fact it was simply coded with the Raspberry Pi. And here's a real prize. Minecraft Pi Edition. That's right. We actually have a version of Minecraft that comes here on the Raspberry Pi 400. Let's start a game. It's going to play that world right there. Building the world. Yep, so here it is. Minecraft for the Pi. It's just a fully fledged working Minecraft. It's hard to really do stuff here, but look at that. We could dig into the ground around here. Keep digging into the ground. And we could dig around. We could jump and stuff like that. That's what you expect for your typical Minecraft experience, where you could carve stuff around. My biggest fan wants to indoctrinate me with Minecraft and make me like Minecraft more. Well, I guess I'm starting to learn Minecraft some more by playing it here on the Raspberry Pi 400. And we also get some other cool game things here. You also have this weird game right here. It's pretty much a Centipede clone. It's just Centipede, but it's more like it's like a somewhat modernized version of Centipede, where you can move up, down, left, right, and you could fire. It's hard for me to play this game with one hand. I'm playing this game with one hand, which is kind of impossible actually to play this game with one hand, and since I'm trying to film with the other hand. But yeah, this still works pretty good. This is a pretty fun, decent game overall. I try to get a good score. I'm not sure just keep track of your scores. And again, the book does encourage you to make your own games like this, and does encourage you to use like assets and things like that to make your very own games for this thing. This thing also comes with some accessories you could use. Here's the standard accessories you find. It appears as a calculator, an archiver, PDF viewer, even as a text editor, which is what they pretty much call Notepad. This is pretty much Notepad for Linux. Yeah, and what's cool about this too is if you go here to document, file type, you could make plain text, you could use like JavaScript or HTML, so you could set it up so you could like do HTML programming on here and JavaScript programming and PHP and if you other CSS, that's like for making style sheets for web pages and doing web development stuff. Having scripting languages, JavaScript, Python, like yeah, because and like you can even use like source like Java or C+ language. And it really does give you a lot. It actually is really easy to do some computer program coding using this Raspberry Pi 400. But of course, if you're going to do serious program this, I recommend not using this keyboard. I recommend using an external keyboard connector USB. As I mentioned earlier, the Raspberry Pi 400 is really good for emulating classic games using the RetroArch operating system. So this is the controller I use to play all my RetroArch games. If I pretty much play all the games you see in my YouTube videos, they're pretty much always played with this exact controller you see in my hand right here. It's a PS1 controller, an actual PS1 controller from the later era of the PS1. And it could be used on a PC or Raspberry Pi simply using this thing where it connects to you plug the controller in there and it connects to your USB. It works on the Raspberry Pi. Very good. Same for Windows PC as well. It works really good. Perfect for playing all the classic games. It's such an awesome controller for that. So this is a RetroArch operating system. Looks just like a PS3 or PS4 style interface where you could emulate so many hundreds of different games or various different classic retro systems. So here's the Raspberry Pi 400 playing some PS1 games. This is Twisted Metal 4 for the PS1. This is one of the first PS1 games I played on the Raspberry Pi 400. The game plays perfectly fine. It runs very smoothly. Sure, the graphics look very pixelated and kind of blocky, but that's kind of expected for PS1 graphics. PS1 graphics are never known for being the best, but the Raspberry Pi definitely does justice to PS1 emulation. PS1 is a very large library of hundreds of games, and the Raspberry Pi can seem to play most of them, or pretty much every PS1 game I tried playing on here plays 100% perfectly fine. So this is really good for people who want to play PS1 emulation. Since I'm playing with that genuine PS1 controller, this is just like playing it on the actual system. And this very well passes for being like a real PS1, also the closest you get to getting a real PS1. That's not an actual PS1. It actually does a better job at playing PS1 games than the PS3 does. This actually is a lot better than actually playing on the PS3. You could get virtual memory cards. It creates like a seemingly infinite amount of virtual memory cards used for saving game data. So you'll never have to worry about running out of space for save data, which is a common problem with the PS1 because memory cards are very small. Here's another PS1 game. This is Ape Escape. The emulator doesn't really fully recognize Ape Escape's control scheme that well, mostly because Ape Escape is a very odd, unique control scheme. If you press down the left analog stick on the controller, it brings up a menu screen, which actually does interfere with the gameplay of Ape Escape, but that could easily be solved by remapping some of the controls. The control scheme won't be exactly like how it should be in the real game, but it works well enough, and it is very well playable, so it's possible to play Ape Escape 1 on the emulator. It actually works better on this than it does on my Windows PC, actually, mostly because of the controls. So here's some Sega Dreamcast emulation. So this is Star Wars Episode 1 Racer for the Sega Dreamcast. The screen looks very washed out, but it's mostly due to my phone filming this screen. I'm filming this with my Samsung Galaxy A53 phone. So, but this game does look, really good. Like Sega Dreamcast, it's known for being very smooth and playing it's very smooth and plays very fast too. Because Sega Dreamcast, it's really good for that. It also plays PSP games really good too. This is like a Star Wars 2 for the PSP. Playing it on the Raspberry Pi 400, it makes it look indistinguishable from the home console versions or even the PC versions. This exact same game and pretty much this full glory also came on the Xbox 360, and here it is being emulated on the Raspberry Pi 400. The PSP really was ahead of its time for a system. The Raspberry Pi definitely does justice to that. So overall, the Raspberry Pi 400 is something I recommend for if you're really techy, if you're interested in computers and you like doing technical computer work, if you're interested in emulating games, like really good at game emulation for these classic games, I recommend getting a Raspberry Pi 400. It's a really good thing to get. It also makes it a good backup computer, makes for a good emulation machine. It works for a large variety of purposes, which is definitely part of the reason why I like the Raspberry Pi 400 so much. It's a really good system overall. I highly recommend getting one.